Podcast. I'm your host, TW. Listen, I know you have so many choices for your entertainment. So whoever you are and wherever you may be, thank you so much for spending a few minutes of your day here with me. There's a ton of great stories going on right now. A ton of stuff that's on everybody's minds, on the tip of everybody's lips, and some stuff that we were loving a little while ago that is not so popping right now. I'm looking at you, WWE. Yep, gotta pick it up. We're gonna talk about all of that stuff, but we're gonna get started with a piece of news that was popping when I woke up yesterday morning, and I gotta be honest with you. I was a little floored. I was a little bit shocked. So yesterday morning, I woke up and I saw the news that the Lakers are targeting Dan Hurley as their next head coach. Whoa. And my immediate thought was, how the heck is Dan Hurley going to work with LeBron James, right? Because LeBron is famously known as a coach killer, a player slash GM, somebody that really runs the team. And not only that, if you're paying attention, the Lakers have not exactly been a well-run organization. I mean, there's times when it looks like Rob Pelinka, the GM, is asleep at the wheel. They fire a coach every 2 years. I love the Lakers. I'm a Lakers fan. I've been a Lakers fan, but there's a lot of times when they don't look like the best run organization. So the idea that you're going to hire this coach who is a hard coaching kind of coach to coach LeBron James, who is a let me do my own thing kind of player, I just can't see that working, right? I can't see that working. But the report from Woj was that Rob Pelinka with the Lakers is looking to build a program for the long term. He's looking to have a culture kind of like they have in Miami. They famously talk about heat culture, and you see how that actually does work pretty well down there, right? They pull in guys all the time who are, low round draft picks. And when I say low, I mean like, second round or even undrafted free agents. And they get these guys who come in and they work. They might not play their first year. They might play a little bit their second year, but they work their way up and they get better with their, their shooting and their defense, their hustle points, you know what I mean? Diving on the floor for loose balls and all that kind of stuff. And that's how the Heat have a team, with Eric Spoelstra there year after year, Pat Riley there year after year, and they pull out the Derek Whites of the world. A guy like Jimmy Butler works so well there because they play a certain way. They have a certain kind of culture. You see Tom Thibodeau doing it with the Knicks, and we can't 100% say the results are there right now, but it sure looks way better than it has been. But here's the problem. The Lakers, you got Anthony Davis, who, I want to give him his credit. This year, he's done a lot better about getting up off the ground. But normally, when AD goes down, he stays down. Okay? But, a coach like Dan Hurley, if you look at his UConn teams, right? He is a coach who has his players doing all the dirty work. These past 2 years, they've gone back-to-back winning the NCAA championships, and I don't think they've won a tournament game by less than double digits. They've been smoking everybody. UConn has been the best program in college basketball over the last 2 years for sure, right? And one of the more impressive things about it is they haven't had a Brandon Miller, right? Which is to say they haven't had one guy out there putting up 30 points a game, carrying the team. If it's not going well, let's just lean on this guy and he's going to bail us out, right? There's been no player like that. They've had good players. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they haven't had good players. Jordan Hawkins was a first round pick, but you know what? Jordan Hawkins left for the NBA after last season, and the team got better this season, okay? He's not leaning on one particular player. And so I would love to see the Lakers become that kind of program. I would love to see the Lakers play that way. But I can't see it. I just can't see it, man. You know, like it's the NBA, and they have a guy like LeBron James, right? Like LeBron is a superstar, but LeBron is LeBron going to be the kind of guy that's going to let himself get coached? Is he going to let Dan Hurley chew him out? Is he going to stop trying to overrule the coach's play calls in the huddle? You know, or is Dan Hurley going to be the kind of coach that allows that to go on? Now, if what we're hearing is right, which is that the Lakers, you know, want to make a long-term commitment to Dan Hurley, well, you're going to have to make sure he has the power, right? You're going to have to make sure that LeBron and Anthony Davis can't go upstairs and say, he's working us too hard. He's asking us to get back on defense. He's asking us to run sprints in practice. I can't play like this. You got to let these guys know ahead of time, look, this is the coach we're hiring. This is the way we're going to play, and we're backing him. We're standing with him. Now, do the Lakers have the guts to look LeBron and Anthony Davis in the face and tell them it's the coach's way? It's the coach's way or the highway. That's going to be the big question. Do the Lakers have the guts to stare down LeBron James and Anthony Davis and say, if you don't like it, you can go? Because that's what these things come down to, right? Like the players typically have the leverage in these type of situations if there's a clash, because they're the players, right? They're the talent. They can always tell the teams, well, where are you going to find another me? And if the Lakers are willing to say, I don't know, but we're going to try, then that takes away the players' leverage. So will the Lakers all of a sudden, out of nowhere, become that kind of organization? Which, by the way, this wouldn't be the first time the Lakers would have a backbone. I remember a story years ago about Jerry West, you know, getting between Shaq and Kobe when they were fighting and bringing them both in the office and sitting down and basically telling them, shut up, I'm the boss. I'm the boss, you're not the boss. You're not in control, I'm in control. And, you know, they went back and they played and they won championships together. But I don't know that the Lakers of today will have the guts to do that. I hope they do. Don't get me wrong. I hope they do. Now, when it comes to Dan Hurley, is this a job he would want to take? And why would he want to take it? As I already mentioned, I don't have the most faith in the Lakers as from a management standpoint to do the right things to allow Hurley to be successful, which is to say, to give him teeth to his authority, right? Like, I don't trust the Lakers to not back down and bow down when LeBron and AD say, I don't like the way he's coaching me. I don't trust him to do that. I do not trust him. I'm going on record right now saying I don't trust the Lakers to do that. But if you're Hurley and they give you the commitment, then okay, that's a little more reassurance. Now, the thing everybody's throwing out there, the Lakers are preparing a big money, long-term deal, right? And obviously, with coaches, the money usually talks, right? That's the way college sports works. But if you look at Dan Hurley, Kentucky already came after him with the bag after the season was over. Kentucky clearly was getting rid of John Calipari, and they've got a big money donor base, and they're able to just throw out a big contract just like that. But Dan Hurley told Kentucky no, and you have to believe he told Kentucky no with the understanding that they were going to take care of him, that UConn was going to take care of him from a contract standpoint in the coming weeks, in the coming months. Well, guess what? That was April. This is June. And there has been no announcement of a contract extension between Dan Hurley and UConn, and that is why we're getting this leak right now. There's always a reason, people. There's always a reason. Whenever you see information leaked, especially in the sports world, you always got to look at the leak and ask yourself, who does this benefit? Who does this benefit? And who does it benefit this information being leaked right now? You got to think the main beneficiary is Dan Hurley, right? Because he turned down big money to stay at UConn. It's not like he was making nothing at UConn, but Kentucky came after him with a big offer. But I can totally understand him wanting to stay at UConn as opposed to Kentucky because UConn is a top tier program. They are one of the best programs in college basketball. So you've already got a top level job, right? Rabid fan base, all that stuff. You've already got that. At this point in college, there's nothing for Dan Hurley to do other than pad his resume, right? Like he's won 2 in a row and it hasn't been close. They have smoked everybody they've played in the NCAA tournament. They've been outstanding at UConn. So there's really not much in college left for Dan Hurley to do, but I do believe Dan Hurley is a fiery competitor. We've seen this man lose his mind and get thrown off the sidelines multiple times. Dan Hurley is a maniac and I love it. So I can totally see Dan Hurley wanting the challenge of trying to restore the feeling and the vibes to the Lakers the way he did at the University of Connecticut. I think there's a huge challenge there available. I think the challenge is very appealing to Dan Hurley. And if you ask me to put my money on it today, I think Dan Hurley is the next coach of the Lakers. I think it is. I think it's going to happen. I think Dan Hurley likes the challenge. I think the Lakers are going to back up the truck. I think they're going to back it up more than UConn can. And I think that on some level, he's probably a little offended that UConn has taken this long to get the deal done. The way colleges work, unless you have a big collection of boosters sitting right there going, don't worry, we'll write the check, then these funds have to be approved and go through, like boards of trustees and like all these people. And, UConn, while UConn has a great and prestigious basketball history, what UConn doesn't have is this huge, UConn doesn't live in a fanatical basketball state where everybody who's on the board at UConn, everybody who can approve money for something like this, clearly understands and sees the value in spending money on the basketball program. And that's crazy. That's crazy. So when something like this comes up, when the athletic director comes to the board and says, hey, we got to pay this coach. He has us, as the best basketball program in the country, and we got to pay him competitively like all these other big schools like a Kentucky would, but it's going to cost us, $10-12 million a year. He's going to be looking at a board full of people say, well, I don't know if the highest paid employee in the state should be a basketball coach. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you become a stepping stone school, right? That's how you get a great coach. UConn stumbled upon Dan Hurley, right? Like, this guy was a great high school coach. Then he coached at like a mid-major level. Then he came to UConn and it has just worked. His style worked at UConn. He's done a great job managing the program and putting players together, merging transfers with recruiting well. And he's got this thing humming. The proof is in the pudding. 2 in a row. And I don't know if they're really on track to win 3 in a row, but I wouldn't bet against them. And the fact that we are even having this conversation right now tells me that UConn may have already fumbled this coach. UConn may have already fumbled this coach because they're dragging their feet on paying this man, and I think it's going to cost them in the end. I do think that this report coming out will create some urgency amongst the check writers at UConn, and I do think they will get a chance to come back to Dan Hurley one more time. But after Dan Hurley goes to LA and they roll out the red carpet and they tell him that he's going to have everything he wants, and then they show him the check, I think it's going to be a tough road for UConn to try and catch that. We have reached a point in this WNBA super fandom wave conversation where all the people who have been here observing the league and covering the league for a while are absolutely sick of all the new people. And I get it. Don't get me wrong. I totally understand it. It's crazy because look, man, like there's a reason for it, right? There's a reason for the influx of new viewers, right? People fell in love with Caitlin Clark for a number of reasons, which, you know, we can get into at any point, right? But what happened was she created a fanatical fan base, right? A delusional, fanatical fan base. And if you're listening to this, you may be one of those delusional, fanatical fans, to which I say, welcome. Welcome. I'm happy to have you. But here's the thing though, right? Like, people put such huge, crazy expectations on Caitlin Clark coming into this league. And Diana Taurasi told the world not just about Caitlin Clark, but about all these rookies, because Diana Taurasi, I believe it was her and Sue Bird, they were doing commentary during the NCAA tournament, and somebody asked him, it may have been Scott Van Pelt, you know, about how he saw these fantastic rookies transitioning into the WNBA. And she said, there's a rude awakening coming. She said that there is, you know, a league waiting full of grown women who have been doing this for a long, long, long time. And what have we seen, right? What have we seen? We've seen exactly what she said, right? Like Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Cameron Brink, all the great players who have come into the WNBA this year as rookies. They're all struggling. None of them are picking up where they left off in college because this league is so good. It's so specialized. It has so many great players who have been doing this for such a long time that they know all the tricks, right? They know all the tricks. They know how to get up under you when you go for a rebound. They know how to bait you into a foul or into taking a shot that's not your best shot. They are seasoned vets. And by the way, if you're listening to any of this criticism, it always comes along with the understanding that, hey, they'll get better too as they develop, as they get bigger and stronger, and as they learn more of the nuance of the game. You'll start to see more of that skill shine through. You'll start to see Angel Reese look more like the player she was in college. You'll start to see Caitlin Clark look more like the player she was in college. You'll start to see the same thing with Cameron Brink and all the rest of them, okay? But Caitlin Clark in particular, right? She's a guard. And in this league, guards are strong, and it's a physical league. It's not structured with rules that allow guards to run free and get shots off the way the NBA is, right? This game allows players out on the wing and down low and everywhere to be much more physical with one another, right? So when people see things like they see Caitlin Clark taking a bunch of fouls, they're upset because they're like, yo, we came here to see from the logo, right? Like, we came here to see Caitlin Clark just busting everybody's tail, scoring a bunch of points, leading her team to victory. And they're not seeing that. The Fever have been getting smoked. I think the closest game they've lost has been by like 9 points or something like that. Like, the Fever are, as a team, they're not very competitive. And if you watch them play, they are structuring this where they are allowing Caitlin Clark to take a ton of shots. They're allowing her to take a ton of shots. And you could argue whether or not she's the best player on that team. I think it's debatable, right? But they do have other good players on that team, and they need to spread the ball around, right? Maybe if they didn't depend so much on Caitlin Clark, they might score more, right? They might be more competitive. But I think anytime you have a team that is so dependent on one player, this is men's basketball, women's basketball, anybody, what can happen is you get other players standing around watching, waiting for this player to make something great happen. And you don't want that, right? Especially when you have other people who can score. I think they should try to put Caitlin Clark in situations to be, coming off screens, catching the ball open, where she can get open looks, as opposed to, bring it up, drive, look to dish. Look, I'm not a basketball coach, right? But I would think you don't want to keep sending her down into the heart of the defense where she's going to get clobbered like Jordynne in the early days, right? Like I don't think you want that for Caitlin Clark. I don't think you want that for Caitlin Clark's fans, right? But Caitlin Clark took an especially hard foul last week from Kennedy Carter of the Chicago Sky. It was a big anticipated game because it was the renewal of the Angel Reese Caitlin Clark feud. And by the way, that's why you're all here in the first place. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. As a matter of fact, Angel Reese outlined this in a post-game presser, about everything that has been going on. It wasn't a post-game presser. I'm sorry. It was I think a couple days after the game. It was a pre-practice presser. And she talked about this, but I remember this myself. Let me talk about my own experience regarding this, right? Because, look, I love women's hoops, right? Like, I'm from Connecticut. I've grown up watching the UConn women's basketball teams, and I thought it was really cool once the rest of college basketball kind of started to catch up to them. Although at this point, Dawn Staley has run away with it. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Dawn Staley and I love what she's putting together. But I mean, I'm just saying, y'all are making it's slow for my Huskies right now, and I don't like that. Okay. But back to the business. Look, I remember last year I was in LA. I was staying. I was out there for Wrestlemania, right? And I'm getting ready to go to the Wrestlemania night 2. I'm at the hotel bar. I'm having a burger. Might have been a little hungover from the night before. That's neither here nor there. But I'm having a burger and I'm getting ready to leave to go meet up with the homies at SoFi Stadium for night 2 of WrestleMania. And as I'm walking by the TV, I'm seeing LSU is smoking Iowa. Now, I remember being shocked that Iowa had beaten South Carolina because South Carolina became the new juggernaut. They knocked UConn off the perch, and anytime UConn has played South Carolina recently, oh my God, it's been ugly, right? But I did know about this girl, right? Because UConn had this outstanding freshman, Paige Beckers. She came in and she was cooking, right? But somewhere along the way through the NCAA tournament, they talked about this player from Iowa, this player, Caitlin Clark, who had been getting love from Kevin Durant for the way she shoots. And people just giving so much love to this player, Caitlin Clark. And so, luckily for me, I got to see UConn play Iowa in the tournament, and they went crazy. Oh, it was a good game. It was a good game. You got to see Paige, you got to see UConn, got to see Caitlin Clark. And so I was up on Caitlin Clark. I knew she could shoot. I knew she was a baller. And it was just cool, right, to watch the progression, to watch her grow. I knew she was a big deal. And I knew that talent for shooting was something that translated across any type of fandom. Right? Like, one of the biggest criticisms of the WNBA game is that they play below the rim. Right? There's no dunking. There's very little dunking. There's not a lot of stuff like that. Right? That's one of the big criticisms of the WNBA game. But what Caitlin Clark could do, and you all know this by now, right? She could shoot from anywhere on the floor, and that translated directly to what the biggest stars in the NBA were doing at the time, right? The Dame Lillards, the Steph Currys, the Kevin Durants, even LeBron James. They would all test themselves periodically to see how far can I pull up and knock down this three. And the fact that Caitlin Clark could do that, it translated immediately. It was awesome, right? So much to love about Caitlin Clark. She got to the Final Four, knocked off the best team in South Carolina, and then we got to the championship game, and they got their doors blown off by LSU. Now, along the way, throughout the course of the game, the regular course of the game, she came across Angel Reese, and Angel Reese, she's a big crap talker, right? Angel Reese, she talks her junk. That's who she is. So, she was taunting Caitlin Clark. She did the "you can't see me," all of that. And all of a sudden, right after the game, I was happy for LSU. Outside of, not a huge Kim Mulkey fan, but whatever. I was happy for LSU that they got that win. I thought it was really cool that LSU got that win without going through South Carolina, because I knew that would set the stage for this season that just happened. For South Carolina to be like, hey, we're the real best team. Y'all just got lucky you didn't have to play us in the championship. And LSU would be the defending champion, so I knew that would set a great stage for the following season, right? But that's not what people were talking about coming out of that game. What people were talking about coming out of that game was, oh, Angel Reese taunting, unsportsmanlike, no class, all of this. So Angel Reese immediately became your villain. Angel Reese became your villain. And whether you like it or not, as much as you love Caitlin Clark, you hated Angel Reese just as much, if not more. Okay? Because in every good story, every hero needs a villain. Every hero needs a villain. So you needed Angel Reese to be your villain to support your love for Caitlin Clark. And you know what? It did wonders for the sport. It did wonders for the sport. So all of that vitriol that people had, people who never gave a damn about women's college basketball, were suddenly just taken aback and offended when they saw this black girl taunting this white girl after the game. Then they did a little more research and they realized the white girl, oh my God, she's a superstar player, right? And they got behind her so big, right? And this is not uncommon, right? This is not uncommon. You look at any number of instances, right, where there is a clear red or blue, black or white, a clear division to get on the side of, and it brings out the fanatics, right? And so all of a sudden, Caitlin Clark had all these fanatics. Outside of her just being a great player, she was some sort of representation of them. And here's the part I want to tell you. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. This is sports. It's okay to like whoever you like and to like them for whatever reason you like, okay? We have such a hard time talking about race in this country that white folks feel guilty to admit that they identify with something, that they're more interested in it if it's faced by a white person, right? But again, look at Eminem, right? Look at Eminem. Eminem was a great rapper, but you out there, white people who listen to Eminem and never really listen to any other rap, it's okay to admit you found him interesting because he looked like somebody who you know, right? Like his stories felt like they could be somewhat familiar to you. That's okay. People are different. We have different experiences. It's okay to admit that, all right? Like as a white person, you don't have to be ashamed that you find Caitlin Clark someone to root for because she looks like somebody who you might know. That's okay. I want to tell you that is okay. All right? It doesn't make you racist because you feel like Caitlin Clark is relatable. Okay? There's other things that make you racist, but that's not one of them, right? Like feeling like Caitlin Clark is relatable to you that doesn't make you a racist, okay? Right? So the fact that we can't talk about that part honestly leads us to all of these other diverting conversations when we need to just be able to, just root for who we root for. If I'm watching a football game and the Jets aren't playing, right? Like, I'm like, okay, who am I rooting for? Is there a black quarterback? Is there a black coach? If there is, I'm rooting for him. Hey, that's how I get down. That's how I get down. It's okay. I love to see it. Okay? I don't have a problem admitting my biases. If we all took that approach, I think conversations like this would go over a lot better. So, Caitlin Clark is getting her butt kicked in the WNBA. And the thing that I think everybody needs to take a breath and realize is that this is normal. When LeBron came in the WNBA, everybody tried to give him their best. I remember when Lonzo Ball played for the Lakers and they had a game against the Clippers, and Patrick Beverley was pushing Lonzo all over the court, and he felt so proud of himself, right? This happens to rookies all the time. If you come in with hype, the players who are already in the league are gonna try to make an example out of you when you get there. Okay? The WNBA is just a physical league. Nobody is targeting Caitlin Clark. Well, nobody is trying to hurt Caitlin Clark. Nobody is treating her any differently than any other rookies. We saw Angel Reese get choke slammed last week going up for a rebound, and I didn't hear nobody out here complaining about that. I saw somebody write an article that said, what Kennedy Carter did to Angel Reese would be a felony on the streets. Yo, man, y'all are ridiculous. I think Gino Auriemma, probably the greatest women's basketball coach of all time, he said it perfectly. He said, look, all the fanatics, the delusional fanatics who came along with Caitlin Clark, they set her up for failure. You guys put all these crazy expectations on her, and you didn't know anything about the league she was coming into. But here's the thing, right? Now that you're here, let's look at what's around. The Fever are off for a few days. I think the Fever played something like 11 games in the first 20 days of the season, something crazy like that. They had a ridiculous schedule. And then I think going forward, they're going to play their next 20 games over the course of like 100 days or something like that, right? So there was a pretty good plan with the schedule makers to feed the Caitlin fanatics, right? Feed the interest, feed the curiosity around Caitlin Clark, and to put the Fever on as much as possible in as many markets as possible and let people get their fill and their dose of Caitlin Clark. Okay, cool. We've gotten through that part, right, in the first almost month of the season. And now the Fever are settling into a more normal schedule, and we can get to see who the really good teams are in the W. And what we're seeing is the Connecticut Sun cooking right now. Let's go. Woo! 18 to Dewana Bonner. Look, man, they woo. Oh my God. Them, Dejanay Carrington, listen, look, the Connecticut Sun, as of today, are still the only undefeated team in the W. Give it up for the Connecticut Sun, ladies and gentlemen. Still the only undefeated team in the W. They are cooking. But this conversation about the great teams in the WNBA really, you cannot have this conversation without talking about the Las Vegas Aces. Oh my God. Listen, not only are the Aces great, but I just want to say this. I saw a tweet from Robert Lassau of Black Sports Online, and I agree with this 100%. The tweet said something, and I'm paraphrasing here, said something to the effect of, the biggest beneficiary from the influx of new fans was going to be A'ja Wilson. And ladies and gentlemen, truer words have never been tweeted, because A'ja Wilson is doing the damn thing. A'ja Wilson is putting up a stat line similar to Shaquille O'Neal in 2001. And this is true. She's putting up a stat line similar to Shaq in 01. And I know a lot of you might not be old enough to remember Shaq in 01, but it was the most dominant thing any of us have ever seen. The man was truly unstoppable. A'ja Wilson is unstoppable. She is destroying teams right now. And by the way, A'ja Wilson played a game against the Wings the other night, and she got busted in the face 2 or 3 times. Played the game, with a bandage on her nose, with like a busted lip. It was crazy. I didn't see no calls for legal action. Okay, I didn't see nobody fighting about that. But A'ja Wilson is showing everybody what I've seen the past couple of years, which is that she's not only the best player in the league, she's she's got the vibes, man. Like A'ja Wilson is a vibe. Like you watch her play, man, she's cool. Her teammates, they rock with her. They look to her as a leader. She does it on offense. She does it on defense. Like she's got the swag when she's coming into the game, when she's on the sidelines. Like A'ja Wilson is that girl. She is that girl. And like, you just gotta love, if you love watching LeBron, if you love watching any of the great players who just embody what the league is about, don't be sad, okay? Do not be sad. If you're someone, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I mean this from the absolute core of my soul. If you are someone who came watching the WNBA because you want to see Caitlin Clark, if you're here because you want to see Caitlin Clark do well and you're not seeing Caitlin Clark do as well as you want her to do, don't be mad. Just gravitate your attention to A'ja Wilson and you will not be disappointed. If you want to see a player dominate, find when the Aces are playing and look for number 22, okay? Find when the Aces are playing. If you want to see a player dominate, if you want to see a player swag on her opponents, if you want to see a player look like they are head and shoulders above the pack, then ladies and gentlemen, find A'ja Wilson. Find A'ja Wilson and watch her, because she is all of that and more. You know how you loved watching Caitlin Clark score a bunch of points, talk mad trash, and lead her team to victory all year during the NCAA tournament? Well, guess what? A'ja's doing it. A'ja's doing it. She's doing it now. She's doing it at a level that is incredible. A'ja Wilson is absolutely, positively, 100% that girl. And if you like hoops, if you like great players, and if you like watching teams that dominate, find the Aces and watch how A'ja Wilson gets down. That's all I gotta tell you. That's all I gotta tell you. Because look, man, watching great players, if you like greatness, if you like watching Patrick Mahomes do his thing because he's great, if you like watching Tom Brady win all the championships because he's Tom Brady, if you like watching, Shohei Ohtani get up there and bat and pitch and do all the things, okay? Watch A'ja Wilson. I am telling you. She's fun to watch. She's a great player. She's on a great team. The Aces are a great team. They're probably going to win the chip this year, although I know the Sun going to try to have a little something to say about that. But I'm telling y'all, man, A'ja Wilson is a great player. She is the real face of the WNBA. And if you watch her and root for her, she will not disappoint you. That's all I got to say. That's all I got to say. This has been a fun week in the world of wrestling, I gotta admit. That post-WrestleMania hangover is real. Oh my God, I gotta tell you. That post-WrestleMania hangover is real. We're about 2 months post-WrestleMania at this point, and it doesn't feel like WWE has hit their stride in terms of having any real type of attraction, right? Like, I can't think of one thing that I really want to go out of my way to watch in WWE right now. But I totally get it and understand that you have to go through a building. Like, that's the way storytelling works, right? You have to go through a building stage before you get to your climaxes, right? That are the biggest important feature parts of your story. Totally get that. And that's the phase that WWE is in right now. But the problem is that none of it is especially interesting, right? Like, we got Liv Morgan as the Women's World Champion. She got that title off of Becky Lynch. What's probably more interesting is the fact that Becky Lynch let her contract expire with WWE, and she's now going to be taking some time off, and that is going to lead to all kinds of speculation about what's to come next for Becky Lynch, right? Like that's probably the more interesting part of that story that I'm really interested to see what's going to come next, because Becky Lynch, right? Like I don't think she's going anywhere else. Let me just go ahead and say that. I don't think Becky Lynch is going to AEW. I don't think she's going to TNA. I don't think she's doing anything like that. Becky Lynch is a big time star, right? She's worked her way up through the indie scene, but at this point, Becky Lynch is she's made for the big time, right? You could argue she's made the big time, right? Like Becky Lynch, she's a WWE superstar, right? Like she's made for WWE, and no other stage would seem big enough for her. AEW, I think they're in a good groove right now with their women's division, but it's not a level for Becky Lynch, right? It's just not. It's not. They're not ready to feature a star like her. Although I do say this though, if Becky Lynch were to go to AEW, she totally has the skill set to make lemons out of lemonade being over there. She can talk, right? Her wrestling is good enough. But the problem with AEW, and sorry for AEW fans, I know you hate sentences that begin with the problem with AEW, but the thing about AEW, right, is that they're all about the wrestling, right? So Becky Lynch, while she does put on quality matches, the thing that is her strength is making you care about the outcome of those matches, as opposed to I'm going to do, 100 flips and dives and hurricane ranas and put myself through tables and glass and fall off the stage and all of that stuff. Instead of doing that, Becky Lynch would rather give you a story through promos and things like that to make you actually care about the outcome of the match. So I don't think that Becky Lynch and AEW would be a good fit, because what she does well and what they do well, I just don't think they really match, right? Now, I also believe Becky Lynch is, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, I believe Becky Lynch is the greatest WWE female superstar of all time. So I believe in her ability to adjust and adapt to any situation, to any circumstance, no matter where she works, and I think she would make that work. I think Becky Lynch could go to TNA and sell out a big arena. I said it. I think she's that good. I think she's that interesting. And I think that she could, I think she could inspire a crowd to check out TNA that well. I think she's that good. But Becky Lynch is gone for a while, so we got Liv Morgan, right? We're on the Liv Morgan Revenge Tour. That's what we're doing right now. And I can't, look, so, all right. Raw Monday night ended with Liv planting, oh no, I'm sorry, that was last week. Liv planted a big kiss on Dom as Raw went off the air 2 weeks ago. But then this week, she was basically chasing Dom around, right? Trying to plant the seeds that Dom really has a thing for Liv, even though Dom is saying out loud that he's still with mommy. He told Liv, mommy's gonna kill you when she gets here. She said she's gonna kill you too. She said, but I'll make it worth your while. Ladies and gentlemen, she's using her sexuality as a weapon, and I don't like it. I think that's foul. That's foul. You can't do that. That's unfair. Men only have but so much defense against a thing like that. So, Liv Morgan, you take your evil powers and you go away. But that's basically the story that they got going on Raw. The other story is there's a bit of love triangle is not the right word. But there's a bit of a title triangle going on between Gunther, who just won the King of the Ring, which means he gets the World Heavyweight Champion at SummerSlam. Drew McIntyre, who is challenging for the World Heavyweight Championship at Clash at the Castle in a couple of weeks. And, of course, the World Heavyweight Champion, Damian Priest. But we got a very interesting wrinkle on Monday night. We got main event Jey Uso, who came out to do a promo in which he declared himself, not declared himself, but he stated that his goal is to win Money in the Bank. Hey, the oos in the bank. I could totally see it being a thing. Everybody's yeeting. I could totally see that being a big thing. I could see Jay getting that. But the thing that I don't like, right? I think Jay is going to be the World Heavyweight Champion. But the part that I don't like, and I've said this several times, is I feel like they refuse to complete the bloodline story in a way that would make sense. To me, this story began, whatever it was, 4 years ago during the quarantine, and the story was about Roman manipulating his family to do his bidding, in particular Jay, right? And Jay, his rise to becoming a main event star. Now, from a popularity standpoint, Jay has elevated himself to main event level. A lot of people have their takes, oh, he's just an entrance, he needs a new moveset. Damn all that. I think moves are not that important, okay? Like, the structure of a match is important, but I believe it was Raven who said, sitting in the corner was one of my moves, okay? It's cool if you have a ton of, flashy, fun things you can do during a match, but it's not the be-all, end-all to wrestling a good match. It's not even close. You just got to keep people interested and engaged in the outcome of the match. That's what really matters. So I think Jey Uso absolutely has the crowd on his side, right? We can see that. We can visually see that when he comes out for his entrance. I don't think hot-shotting him with a Money in the Bank cash-in for the championship would be the right way to do it. I think Jay should get his shot against the champion. I'm not saying immediately, right? But the way I think Jay should become the champion, I think Jay should get his shot against the champion in a regular match. And if it was, let's say, Damian Priest, I think you create a situation where Jay's being overwhelmed by the Judgment Day with all this interference, right? And then at times when it looks most bleak for Jay, like he's going to lose, I think that's when you bring back Roman Reigns. I think you bring back Roman to make the save and help Jay win the World Heavyweight Championship and thereby squashing the beef between Roman and Jay, making it right. And now you have the setup for your original Bloodline faction versus the remix Bloodline faction led by Solo Sikoa. And you have also completed the full circle story for Jey Uso. Hello. It really doesn't seem that hard. I think people probably wouldn't love that idea because in some ways it would put, Jay as the leader and Roman behind him. But listen, those are all details that you could work out later. But I think what would be important there, right, is you bring it all back home. You bring it all together in a way that completes Jey Uso's story arc. I think what they're going to do instead is just going to have Jay do some sort of cheap cash in and, they're going to like, okay, we let him have a title and they're going to consider that a completion of his story. And I just don't think it is. I think that the completion of his story has to be a combination of him being a main eventer and him ascending to the head of the bloodline, right? Whether it's the head or the co-head or just a piecing things up with Roman Reigns, I think that is the only way to truly complete Jey Uso's story arc in a way that makes sense. But I don't think they're going to do that. But that's what's going on Raw. And I mean, it's cool. On SmackDown, AJ Styles did his version of the Mark Henry fake retirement. And of course, Cody Rhodes, being the dumb babyface, came out and he wanted to see AJ off into retirement and he ended up getting his butt kicked because babyfaces be stupid. Okay, babyfaces be stupid. And I think that's kind of going to be Cody's niche. As a champion, is he's going to be the classic, cookie cutter, dumb baby face, I'm good through and through, that kind of gullible babyface, almost like Sting was back in the day. I know I'm dating myself. I know that's before a lot of you guys' time, but Sting, people loved Sting, right? But he would always fall victim to the Horseman's plot. Ric Flair would be like, oh, you know what, Sting? I know we just beat you up 2 months ago, but you know what? I like what you're doing. And not only do we like you now, I want to invite you in to be a member of the Four Horsemen. And Sting would be like, really? They'd be like, yeah. And then, of course, inevitably they would jump Sting and beat him up and leave him laying. It happened time after time after time. But because Sting was the good guy, the trusting babyface, he would fall for it every single time. And I think that's what we're getting with Cody Rhodes, which is fine, right? It was fine. It's fine. It's not compelling, but it's fine, right? It's typical wrestling storytelling, and I think that's fine. Something that is compelling, though, is Jordyne Grace in NXT. I am enjoying the Jordyne Grace NXT thing. Now, here's what we've got. Jordyne Grace is going to face Roxanne Perez at NXT Battleground this Sunday, June 9th, and I'm calling it right now. I think Jordyne Grace is getting the NXT Women's title. I think Jordyne Grace is getting the NXT Women's title, and I'm going to tell you why. I think Jordyne Grace is getting that title, and I think she's getting it because Roxanne Perez weighs 45 pounds. Roxanne Perez weighs 45 pounds. There is no way she can beat Jordyne Grace unless she does some serious heel work. She needs to get some goons. She needs to throw salt in her eyes like Yokozuna and Mr. Fuji. She needs to throw the flaming wax paper like they used to do in wrestling back in the day. She's got to do something to beat Jordyne Grace. If Roxanne Perez hits that damn Pop Rocks or Canadian Destroyer, whatever you want to call it, and just pins Jordyne Grace 1, 2, 3, yuck. That's not good for anybody. That won't work for me, brother. I think Jordyne Grace gets this win. And at TNA's Against All Odds pay-per-view, is it? A pay-per-view premium live event, whatever you want to call it. They got an event Against All Odds coming up in a couple of weeks. Jordyne Grace has an open challenge for the Knockouts Championship. And I think that open challenge will be answered by Ariana Grace. Yes, I think Ariana Grace will answer the open challenge for the Knockouts Championship and just come do the job for Jordyne Grace. As we know, Ariana Grace's father is Santino Marella, who currently works in TNA as their on-screen authority figure. So I could totally see her being somebody that would be comfortable coming and working a match in TNA. So I could totally see that happening. But regardless, I am very interested to see what happens between Jordyne Grace and Roxanne Perez and what further, what further appearances we get between NXT stars in TNA and TNA stars in NXT. In AEW, a couple of things have been happening that have been really interesting. I think AEW is at an interesting point right now because they have 3 interesting people. They have 3 interesting stars that we want to know what's going to happen next with. They've got Will Ospreay, right? He's their golden boy. They brought over a big money signing a couple of months ago. MJF just returned from his injury. And of course, they got the world champion Swerve Strickland. Now, I have been very critical of the booking of Swerve Strickland as champion, but I want to amend that a little bit because I think that it actually feels like they're still building Swerve a little bit. Like he's the champion, he's having good matches on TV. That's what he does so well, and he's beating people that the AEW audience sees as credible. It's important if you're building a character, they gotta beat people that your audience sees and views as credible. So he's doing that, right? Like he's, Roderick Strong. He's a big, he's a big deal to the AEW audience. Swerve and Roddy had a match last week on Dynamite. It was a great match because Swerve just has great matches, right? He does fun stuff. I'm not a guy who's a big fan of matches just for the sake of matches, but man, Swerve was made for this. Swerve was made for this this type of platform where the wrestling is paramount, because he does so much cool stuff in the ring that his matches are just fun to watch, even if he's wrestling somebody who you don't care about at all. Like, I think Swerve is actually a perfect person to be the AEW World Champion. Now, Will Ospreay won a gauntlet, I think it was, where he's going to get his title shot much sooner than expected. He's going to get his title shot at Forbidden Door. I think everyone thought Will Ospreay was going to get his title shot at the Wembley show. And then MJF appeared. And when MJF came back, he has made it a point to not sub this. He has directly called out Swerve. He's directly called out Will Ospreay, saying, you guys aren't the best, I'm the best. And I got to tell you, this is interesting stuff. This is interesting stuff. I like it. I like it. A big part of the thing that I wasn't loving about AEW is that they kept force feeding us these guys who were a big deal in, some other place, and just expecting us to see them as a big deal. And that was never going to work for me, brother. That was never going to work for me, because I didn't watch those other shows, right? I didn't watch Ring of Honor. I didn't watch New Japan. I didn't watch CMLL. So if you got somebody who was a big deal and had a big story in one of those other places, and they show up here and you just want me to see them as a big deal, that's never going to work for me. So now they're at a place with three guys who I've actually seen, I've seen their come up. Now, not so much for Will Ospreay, because I know he has an extensive history of wrestling, overseas and, all the other places. But I've seen him have great matches in TNA. I've seen some of his matches in AEW, and I get it. It's about the wrestling. It's not about the story. It's about the wrestling. And so I am interested to see, if there is a story arc. But it's like in boxing a few years ago when there was Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder, and it was like, you got these three people that everybody wants to see fight. How are you going to make these fights happen? And I think that's what AEW has right now. They got three people that people really want to see. You could make your argument for each of these as being the fan favorite. I think there's a legitimate argument you can make for each of these guys as being the one that the fan loves the most. And what combination are they going to put these guys together? Well, we already know where the first part of that is going to happen, right? We know that Swerve and Ospreay is going to happen at Forbidden Door. Well, MJF is I think he's going to wrestle Roosh at Forbidden Door. And then I think that sets us towards Wembley, right? So at what point are we going to get that? How is MJF going to get in this mix? These guys are mentioning each other, back and forth a lot. One thing I am noticing about Swerve is he's getting mentioned in the Young Bucks segments, right? So that tells me that the Young Bucks and Swerve are going to cross paths eventually. Are the Young Bucks going to cost Swerve the championship? I don't know. But if they do cost Swerve the championship, let's say against Ospreay at Forbidden Door, that puts Swerve in a program with the Young Bucks, which still basically keeps him right at the top of the card. So while I have been critical of the way that they've booked Swerve, which is to say that they haven't presented him as the star of the show, I do feel like he's still ascending within the world of AEW, right? So, everyone always says, let it play out, let it play out, let it play out. Damn that. You got to show me something to make me want to see the next thing. And to AEW's credit, I think what they're doing with Swerve is worth seeing what happens next, right? Like, every bit of a story you get is supposed to make you want to see what happens next. And I think the way they're booking Swerve makes me want to see what happens next. So shout out to you guys. I'm enjoying that. And listen, keep it going. Keep it going. I'm intrigued. And look, don't get me wrong. I know this is all leading to MJF getting the title back, whatever. I know you guys see him as the golden goose, whatever. But I think the thing that I want is just not to see, the guy who you guys hailed as, this big deal because he's the first black champion just get tossed away in favor of your golden boy coming back. So I think they're on the right track with that. And the most important thing is I'm interested to see what happens next. So shout out to AEW. Looking forward, and I'm going to keep an eye on where you guys are going. We're in the summertime, and we are in, as I'm recording this, it's June 7th, which means Juneteenth is right around the corner. Let's go. Let's go. Juneteenth is, I would say, probably our newest federally recognized national holiday. And because we live in an era, right, where we have clashing of cultures and exchanging of information all the time, it is inevitable every year around this time that we are going to get the question from white people, can I celebrate Juneteenth? Can I celebrate Juneteenth? And listen, I think this is a fair question. I think it's a fine question. And I have an answer for you, okay? I have an answer for you. If you're a white person wondering if you can celebrate Juneteenth, I'm here to tell you, yes. Yes, you can celebrate Juneteenth. Yes, you can celebrate Juneteenth. And not only can you celebrate Juneteenth, you should celebrate Juneteenth, huh? You should celebrate Juneteenth. Now, how? How, TW? How can I celebrate Juneteenth? How can I, as a white person, celebrate Juneteenth? Well, I mean, look, it's June 19th. It's a summer holiday. Celebrate it the same way you would celebrate any other summer holiday. Have a cookout. Go to the beach. Enjoy your day off. Have some beers with your friends. Go buy a new lawn chair. I'm sure there'll be some sales, okay? Like, enjoy Juneteenth the same way you would enjoy any other summer holiday. Now, do I need to be especially mindful of the fact that this is a black-centric holiday that has to do with slavery and all this other stuff? And to that, I would say this. I would say maybe, right? Maybe. I would say no more so than you need to be with any other holiday. With the 4th of July, right? Let's look at the 4th of July. I think the 4th of July is a great comparison here for how you as a white person or a non-black person could and should celebrate Juneteenth. When you celebrate the 4th of July, you really just think about the fun of it, right? You think about the fireworks, you think about the cookouts, you think about the day off and enjoying time with your friends and family, right? Treat Juneteenth the same way. But inevitably, as part of the 4th of July, you're going to run across some, some Independence Day type information or, representation in some way. So again, with Juneteenth, treat it the same way. You don't wake up in the 4th of July and dress like a pilgrim and, and recite the Declaration of Independence. It's not that deep. It's not that serious to you, right? But you do, when you come across it, you acknowledge it, what the reason for the holiday is, and you rock with it. You rock with it, you acknowledge it, and you move on about your business. And again, I just say, treat Juneteenth the same way. Treat it the same way, okay? Acknowledge that, this is a celebration of the day that black people found out that we didn't have to be in bondage anymore. And acknowledge, most importantly, that it's a good thing. Hello. I think that's a big part of it, right? Listen, if black people can be expected to celebrate the 4th of July by, going to parades and watching reenactments of the, not the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, and, doing all these things to celebrate the writing of a document that did not have us listed as people and had no intention of treating us as human beings, then I think at minimum, non-black people can acknowledge that black people finding out that we didn't have to be in bondage anymore was a good thing for America. I don't think that's too much to ask. I don't think that's too much to ask at all. And I think if you do that, then this can just be a regular, normal holiday, right? Like, the good in having things like this is acknowledging that all Americans have different experiences and that these experiences are valid and that they help make America a better place. And that's the good that can come from everyone celebrating Juneteenth. You don't got to turn it into some bull crap. You certainly don't got to try to dress up like what you think black people would dress up as. You know what I mean? Like, you don't got to do nothing crazy. You don't got to go on no wild appropriation celebration kill streak, okay? Just celebrate it like you would celebrate any other holiday in the summer. Celebrate it like you would celebrate any other holiday in the summer. And again, most importantly, take a second, even not to a black person, but to yourselves, take a second to acknowledge that black people being freed from bondage was a good thing for this country. I think that's a great mindset to take as we approach Juneteenth and approach it with a spirit of celebration, something that is good for everyone. It's certainly centric to Black Americans, right? But it's a great thing for everyone. Something just fell. All right, that's all we got for you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you guys for checking out the show. Listen, if you like what we're doing here, please like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. Do everything you can to help out the show. And if you really, really want to help out the show, the best, most important thing you can do is tell a friend to tell a friend. Thank you guys so much. Let's bring more people into the conversation. Until next time, I'm TW. Peace.